Okay, my name is Hank Smith, and I'm interviewing Donté Gibbs. Today is October 22nd, 2013. This interview is for the Voicing and Action Project at Case Western Reserve University Social Justice Institute. Mr. Gibbs, first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to let me interview you.
Thank you.
This project. I would like for you to tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and your family, and your relationship with East Cleveland.
Okay, well, I moved to East Cleveland when I was born in 1988. I'll start there. Born in 1980, I lived in Cleveland. I lived off of Catawba, which is off of Euclid, near Euclid and Green Road. So that's considered the east side of Cleveland. So you know how you always have this big misunderstanding about the city of East Cleveland and the east side of Cleveland. So I was born on the east side of Cleveland, spent, my first 6 years living on Catawba. And then where my journey with East Cleveland begins is when I came to East Cleveland. I moved there when I was about in the second grade with my family, my mom, my dad, my younger sister, and my older brother. So I'm the middle child. So, I'm always, I'm the neglected one. And so we moved in with my aunt. My aunt had a two-family house, and, my dad had lost his job. And so we had to move out of our house and move in with my aunt. We moved in on, she had a third floor, so we moved in on the third floor, and then later on we moved into, the first floor residence of the two-family house. Went to Superior Elementary School. I remember in the apartment buildings across from my house, that was my first girlfriend. So I remember her name, Marie Pruitt. And so, I instantly began making friends and going to Superior. My brother was older, so, him and his friends that he made friends, they walked us to school, and we walked home from school together. And, my dad was just, like looking for work, and my mom was still working as a lab technician. I believe at that time she was at Mount Sinai or Deaconess Hospital. As I matriculated through Superior, went to Kirk, went to Shaw High School, graduated from Shaw High School in 2006 as the valedictorian, and went on to Case, stayed there for 6 years, getting my undergrad, getting my undergraduate degree, Bachelor's of Arts in Sociology, and then my Master of Social Science Administration and Community Social Development at the Mandel School at Case. And so that's a little bit about me. Right now I'm serving as Director of Youth Engagement at Neighborhood Leadership Institute. Just got recognized as the top 30 alum under the age of 30 from Case, so I'm very excited about that.
Congratulations.
Thank you, really appreciate it, and that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. Your mother and father, did they grow up in the area?
Yes, so my mom and dad, interestingly enough, they grew up a street away from each other. So both of my grandmothers, they lived off 105, so Everton and Inglewood. So my dad's mom, called her Grandma Gibbs, she stayed on Inglewood, and my mom's mom, or my grandma, she stayed on Everton, called her Grandma Fellows. And so they both went to Glenville, FDR. But my mom, for high school, she graduated from Talladega High School, so she went down south for high school.
What part of South?
Talladega is Alabama, somewhere down there. Talladega, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that town. I can't remember what state it's
I can Google it real quick.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so your parents actually grew up on the east side of Cleveland. And went to school on the east side of Cleveland. And,
Yes.
And your siblings all grew up in that same area.
Yes.
So y'all got a long history of East Cleveland and
Yeah.
and eastern part of Cleveland.
Yeah, my mom said when they were little, and my dad, they used to ride their bikes to the city of East Cleveland, ride their bikes from 105 to Forest Hill. She still tell me that today. I really don't quite believe it, but, if that's her story, that's her story. But she did say, they used to go to Angela Mia's Pizza and everything like that. So I'm like, hey, the pizza must have been, really good. It is. But, for them to ride their bikes from 105 to, past Coit to get some pizza in East Cleveland, it was amazing.
Did they ever talk about much about East Cleveland and how it was back in those days?
Yes, they said it was pretty much, it was, you had to like really tiptoe through East Cleveland. It wasn't, the East Cleveland you see today. It was much well put together. You had a lot of homeowners, different businesses. It was really well kept, and they say you would get pulled over for the police if your car was too loud, or if your muffler or things like that, or like, the city department really enforced housing codes. So if you had housing violations, it was taken care of just like that. And so they really kind of talked about what East Cleveland was like when they grew up, being this premier suburb of Cleveland that a lot of people wanted to experience and flock to.
Right. And your mother worked as a lab tech at possibly Huron Road Hospital?
No, not Huron. She worked at Mount Sinai. She worked at Deaconess Hospitals, and right now she works for Med Lab, which is 260th and Euclid.
Oh, okay. So she's been in that field
forever. Yeah.
Yeah. How about your father? Did he find more work?
So my dad, he found like different factory jobs and things of that sort, but as of now, just unemployed. He just does like general contractor work on the side when he can.
Are they still in East Cleveland?
Yeah, so my parents, they still live in East Cleveland on Windermere.
Oh, great.
So yeah, so they've been there about 18 years, I would say. 18, 19 years.
Okay. That's good. Okay, think back to your earliest days in East Cleveland, and tell me what life was like then, as far as you growing up in the city, and the relationship you had with your neighbors and things like that.
Life was so much more simpler back then. Now I sound like I'm real old. But it was like I really enjoyed my childhood in East Cleveland. Just being able to walk to school, walk with your friends, not really have to worry about anything. Being able to come home, my mom was at work, and so it was a lot of times where I had to grow up fast. So it was just about the sociology term, like being a latchkey kid. So being able to walk home by yourself, be home by yourself for a couple hours, but, calling your mom to check in and say like, I'm at home, cleaning up, getting dinner started and things like that. So I really had to look out for my sister. And so it was great. I remember going to, Grand Peppy Hill and Forest Hill Park, going sledding each year. We used to play on the hill before we went to school, which was kind of crazy because, we'd get dirty, but then so now we all dirty at school because we wanted to play on the hill. But it was fun, we really have to worry about, too much in a sense. You were outside. We didn't have phones back then, so, you were just outside. You just knew what time to come home. And, just being able to have like my neighbors next door, they really, really looked out for us as far as, making sure we're on top of, we're behaving like if my mom or aunt was gone. Because if not, she'd definitely tell. So she'd definitely let them know. And so, yeah.
So the neighbors was observant towards each other and block watches and stuff like that.
Yes, everybody kind of knew each other as kids. We all hung together. Our kids went to school together. Either, a parent would drop us off at school, even all the way up until I was in middle school going to Kirk. I just walked down the street a couple houses and my friend mom would drop us off to school. And so it was just different things like that to be able to have that small niche or that sense of community growing up to where not necessarily you knew somebody was watching, but you knew if you was doing something wrong, you'll get caught unless we figure ways to get around it.
Yeah. Well, you had a lot of friends on your street back then when you was young and in school.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still communicate with those friends today?
I do. I don't have their numbers to, say like, let's do this on a weekend. But when I'm there, back home, back to my parents' house, I do, see them and kind of talk to their parents. And we just kind of catch up like each time that we talk with each other or see each other. Not necessarily, I mean, Instagram and Facebook is a good way to kind of keep in touch. But East Cleveland is such a small city. You're always going to run into somebody that you grew up with or went to school with. And so it's real easy to kind of see what everyone's been up to and kind of talk, especially if they're still on the street. So.
Yeah, I know a lot of my friends that I knew when I was young,
Mm-hmm.
they still my friends today. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering how that has changed over the years, with the new social media and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. It should make it easier
Right.
to stay in touch.
It definitely is. I mean, people change and you kind of grow and learn. You kind of, see who's, fits in your circle and things of that sort. So, like growing up, I might, one of my best friends stayed on my street. We're not best friends now, but, we're still cool. I'm able to, talk to him and say, what you've been up to. And we're able to, have a conversation without hating each other. So.
What was school like back then? The
School?
educators in, say, your elementary and junior high,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of ratio of teachers did you have in there?
Interesting enough, most of my teachers throughout elementary, middle school, and high school, they were pretty much black females. I had a couple white teachers. I had a white male teacher in high school. Mr. Harvey was my math teacher. I had Miss Uragity as a social studies teacher. But other than that, everybody was a black female. Went to Superior, going to school, it was different because, coming from Cleveland to East Cleveland, it was sort of different in a sense, just trying to get used to the environment. And so, I kind of struggled with that. I would act out, I actually got suspended, if you could believe it or not. I wasn't the Donté, today. So, just fighting, bullying, like stuff that some of the youth go through today, but I had it at an earlier age. So it was like when I was 7 and 8. But third grade was where I really I had a teacher named Ms. Gabo, and she really didn't play. And so she was the one that kind of set me straight, in a sense. I remember I went home crying to my mother, talking about how the teacher made me cry because she yelled something to me. And I just remember that day going home and crying to my mother. And my mother really didn't do anything about it. And then the next day I just knew she really didn't play. And I was sort of afraid of her. We always called her mean, but she was just real strict and stern about, and kind of instilled that discipline aspect in me at school. And so after third grade, fourth grade, I was a pretty good student. Got in a little trouble here and there, just, because all my cousins, we kind of went to the same school. And we have different personalities. So, if my cousin gets in a fight, I got to, help them out, stuff like that. Fifth grade, my grades were picking up. I remember my teacher, Miss Finch and Miss Harris, they really had a belief in me that I was really, a great student and I could achieve more and I was better than, getting C's or B's. And so sixth grade was my first time actually getting straight A's. And I remember that day because I ran home to my mom telling her, calling her Mom, guess what? She's like, what, what's up? So I told her, I got straight A's. And her response was, okay, that's good. So I'm thinking the balloons are about to fall, the confetti, I'm thinking I'm about to have a big celebration because I got straight A's. And her response was, well, that's what you're supposed to get. And back then I really didn't understand it because I'm just what you mean? That's it? We not going nowhere? I'm not getting no new shoes, no new clothes or anything. I was just looking for this instant gratification for her to really be proud of me. But it's she expected that of me. And it was hard to understand because just I'm doing this good work and I'm really not getting recognized for it. And so it just kind of made me expect more of myself going forward and things of that sort. So
Yeah, so those are things that really, you didn't agree with at the time, but now
Right.
you saw how it benefited you.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's a good learning experience. That's great.
That tough love.
Yeah. Well, what's some of your fondest memories of East Cleveland?
Fondest memories. I just think just being able to enjoy the park. You know, Forest Hills Park was just this space that, you know, it was very quiet, very serene. Nobody really went there. And so it wasn't, you know, like this busy park. It was just a place where you can kind of go, relax, feed the ducks, go down to a little creek area, and just really just have fun as kids and just play around. And so, you know, going to the park, going sledding, even when I got older, like going to things like the Battle of the Bands when they were in East Cleveland, like the whole community would pack Shaw Stadium, and, you know, you would see people along the fence, like really trying to get in, and you would just see like, this was like the one event that people really look forward to as a sense of community, and nobody was fighting, nobody was it was just, everybody was very proud of this band, and just being able to take all of that in and enjoy it at that time. Those were just one of my, you know, my greatest memories besides, you know, friends that I made along the way.
Yeah. I know that Shaw has a great alumni. You attend their celebrations every year?
Yes. Usually it's the one at the park. I really don't go to the meet and greet or, you know, the different things they might have at the golf course or things like that. But everybody shows up to the alumni cookout at the park.
They come from all over the country?
Exactly. You'll be surprised how many people you meet that come from Michigan, you know, Kentucky, or as far as away as Florida just for this weekend. And it's a testament to how people relate to the school in a sense. You know, to come all that way just for a weekend, just to, you know, be around people they grew up with.
Right.
And so it's great.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I go up to the park sometime afterwards. You know,
Okay.
I say, yeah, they had a good time.
Yeah, it gets messy.
Okay, in what ways has the city changed over time? And what do you think contributed to those changes? And I'm talking about good and bad.
So, you know, you always hear this history of what East Cleveland was back in the 1950s or 60s, having a peak population of 40,000 and being, you know, predominantly white. And then you have like this loss of the tax base, which were, you know, the loss of jobs. And then you have like blacks moving in, and then the flight of homeowners, and you have a lot of renters. So that change I haven't really experienced. I just heard about it and can just try to picture in my mind what East Cleveland looked like back then. But growing up, you know, it wasn't as many abandoned houses. Like on my parents' street now in Windermere, you know, there's about, I would say, 7 abandoned houses. Back then, when I was growing up, all the houses were filled. Someone was in those houses, whether it was somebody we didn't like, or you always had that neighbor that tell you stay off their grass. So, but you get on their grass anyway just to mess with them. So every house was filled, but now, you know, it's not that case. Some houses, you know, I'm looking at them, and you look on the internet and I can get them for $5,000, and it's just crazy because like, wow, I remember, you know, friends that I grew up with that grew up in this house, and you know, some friends I don't know where they're at now, but you know, being able to say like, I remember we used to have fun in the house, like climbing trees, like all those different type of things. So that's one thing that has changed, and just seeing the lack of investment or, you know, disinvestment over the years. So just seeing, you know, how the streets have gotten, you know, worse, or you know, the ups and downs of the police department. One minute we have a lot of police officers, then another minute we don't. One minute the sheriff is riding through the city helping, you know, police the city, and then one minute it's not. And so it's all this sort of like up and down, in a sense, you know, from the past mayors. When I was really able to realize, who our mayor was. That was around the time when we had Mayor Onunwor. And I remember writing, I was in 10th grade, and for our English class, we had to write a letter to some type of official, a city official, state official, about an issue that we wanted to get addressed. And so I wrote a letter to Mayor Onunwor just talking about the state of the city, as far as the streets and everything, because, we walked to school. So I was able to notice like the streets were just driving and saying like, oh, don't go down this street because too many potholes. Like, you shouldn't have to avoid a street or an area based on potholes. Like, it's just crazy, And so I wrote that letter to him. And in that letter, I was kind of nervous because it wasn't like I was praising him for doing, I was basically saying like what he wasn't doing. And I was playing baseball around that time. And I had a baseball game. And when I came home from a baseball game, my mom said, the mayor was here looking for you. And I'm like, what do you mean? She was like, the mayor came out here like, oh yeah, your son wrote me a beautiful letter and everything. I'm just like, nothing in that letter was beautiful. So I kind of told her about the letter, and she was like, well, he just said he wanted to meet with you and he left his number. And so I told my English teacher, and she was just excited, like, well, you have to like call him. And I'm just like, well, what he's going to say? Are you coming with me? Because I'm like, this is the mayor. I'm not going to the office by myself. But went to the office called him, went to the office, and he he said he appreciated the letter. He said, this was sort of one of the first time he got a letter from, someone my age talking about the city. And so he showed me like these street plans, different streets that were going to get done. And coincidentally, my street, Windermere, was one of those streets on the list to, get totally repaved, the sewer work and everything. And it was going to be done in concrete as opposed to asphalt. And so I saw these plans. He said, it's on the schedule to get done. And so I said, well, great. And so I just reported that to my teacher and just kind of left it at that. 2 years later, my street is getting done. And, so all the stuff that he, did, the charges on racketeering and, things of that sort. But the plans that he showed me actually came to pass. And so regardless of that, I respect that fact because it was something that, he was able to share with me and say, not only is your street getting done, but Idlewood, and I think it was another street that got done with concrete before Brewer got into office.
That was a good testament there.
Mm-hmm.
How has race and racism
Mm-hmm.
Impacted you personally, and how do you think it impacted the city of East Cleveland?
Good question. For me personally, I grew up, everybody around me was black living in East Cleveland, but the church that I went to, it was mixed. It was white. And I really didn't see them as, you see people as white, but it's not like, oh, my pastor is white, and, like it was real small. So we had a real good kind of connection. And so race wasn't really on my radar at that time. Race really didn't hit me until I went to Case. So it was sort of like this culture shock, like going from all black high school, all black city, and then 5 minutes away, going to where I'm not the majority anymore. I feel like a minority. And I really don't, I hate that word minority because it's just minority, but that's how I felt. I felt less than. It was just this big culture shock because I had people from India, Asia, China, and then, I had people that were white. And so to be, the only person, the only person in my classroom that was black, it was crazy because I wasn't used to that. And so now, if you're talking about race issues, it's like, oh, let's look to the black guy because he could tell us what the black experience is about, or, oh, he's from East Cleveland. They found out from East Cleveland. So now I'm like the mayor at Case. I got to speak on behalf of the whole city about what life is like in the hood,
Yeah, but you saying that you felt uncomfortable in that role?
I did, but then I got more comfortable because I was just able to have fun with it, you know. So, and being able to teach people a lesson, you know, in the sense that because I had one lady, we were in a group project and we had to study, you know, these different organizations in East Cleveland, and she was talking about how she lived on the border of Cleveland Heights and East Cleveland, and you know, she really hated it. It was the worst time of her life dealing with East Cleveland, and like nothing good ever comes out of East Cleveland. So I'm just sitting there just listening. I'm just waiting for my moment to just tell her, like, you know, well, hey, my name is Donté. You know, I'm from East Cleveland. And so she was just like, the look on her face was just priceless. And it was like, that moment was what I was like waiting for, because it was able to show her that here I am as an East Cleveland resident at Case with you, doing better than you. You know what I'm saying? And so out of everything I had to go through, like growing up and things of that sort, and here I am in the same classroom, on the same, you know, quote unquote level playing field, and her facial expression was just priceless. She was just shocked, and she didn't really know what to say. She was just like, "Oh well, you know, I think it's good you go to," and she just kept stuttering over her words. And so I was like, "It's cool, you know now that something good can come out of East Cleveland. So, you know, you still want to work in the group?" And so she said, "Yeah," and we just moved on from there. And you know, we built a relationship after that, you know, a friendship. But you know, I just had to let her know.
Like, was able to show her by example, you know.
Exactly. So I really didn't have to tell her, but you know, it was just great to be able to, for her to see that.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. As far as you moving, going from an all African American environment to Case Western Reserve, where you were involved with people from all over the world, actually, people
Right.
from all of other countries. And, you know, how did you feel about that? How did that affect you in any kind of way?
It did. It kind of made me like clam up, because it wasn't something I was used to. It was this shock. It was scary, you know, like to be this close to home, but yet so far away. In that atmosphere, and Case in itself could be, you know, in its own bubble. Like just on that campus, you know, everybody could just kind of be in their own world, rushing, getting here, and type of thing. But it was really scary. I wanted to get back to what I knew and what I was used to. So it was hard for me because I kind of went in with the sense of doing pre-med, but I wasn't really sure. And so everybody was looking up to me because, you know, being this young black boy from East Cleveland, making it to Case, being valedictorian, getting, you know, an academic scholarship to go to Case and pursue something like Case. I didn't realize Case was such a good school, being so close to home. And so stepping foot on that campus and just hearing how good Case was and how people from all over the world, like one of my roommates was from Australia. And I'm just like, what are you doing here, you know, in Cleveland, Ohio? And so it was real hard to kind of live up to everyone's expectations, but then make it the day-to-day to say, you know, okay, because everybody there was a valedictorian, but they came from far better school districts, you know, from where I came from, because I wasn't prepared for college when I, you know, graduated from Shaw. I love Shaw, but I mean, it just didn't really prepare me for that atmosphere. Academically, socially, culturally, it just didn't do it. And so I had to learn how to study. I had to learn how to be open to other cultures. And I had to learn how to defend myself racially, culturally, without fighting somebody, you know, getting expelled. Because the worst thing that could have happened to me is being, you know, expelled from Case. While everybody's looking for me to be like this great person, this doctor or whatever, and then not being a doctor. So just dealing with all these different stresses along with race and culture, it was really, really difficult to maneuver, but somehow I was able to do it. I remember, you know, just freshman year, just like, so they give you a bus pass as part of your like financial aid package. And so I remember on Fridays, I was in chemistry from 2 to 2:50, right? Worst class that I had ever. So I couldn't wait to get out of that class. At 2:50, I would get out. By 3:15, I was back at home on Windermere because I could just catch the health line, walk till you could catch the health line, and then get off right in front of my street, walk home. And I was home for the weekend. So I was there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday went to church, had Sunday dinner. So that was, something to look forward to. But I had my clothes for the weekend in my book bag and whatever like little homework that I had. And I was at home for the weekend, would come back Sunday night and, just get ready for the school week. But every chance I got, I was at home. Like, friends that I have now from Case, they always say, like, never on campus. Like, do you even stay on campus? I stayed on campus. But to me, the most important thing freshman year for me was to keep going back to what I knew and not necessarily trying to build these relationships with people that I was supposed to get to know.
Okay, and that was during your freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
But did it change over the time?
It did. Sophomore year, so freshman year, I just had one roommate. He was white. He was from Cincinnati. Very cool, had great parents and things like that, and they were really open towards, me and really excited about my whole journey and everything of that sort. Sophomore year, I stayed with 6 people, all black, and we stayed with one Hispanic. And we were cool, and so I began staying on campus more because then it's like when you stay with 6 people, you kind of building those relationships. And so I began staying on campus more. I would still kind of go home on the weekends and things of that sort. But, junior year, it was getting to the point where it's just like, all right, I began staying on campus, over the weekends. And I began calling Case like my home. Like all my friends were saying like, they were naming Case as their home. Even though they were from the Cleveland area, Case was home. And I was beginning to get to that sort. I was beginning to love Case. So making these different connections, with my professors, being able to talk to them about the different problems, different struggles, and just learning more about myself, learning about different programs for Case. So learning about the study abroad programs, making Case work for me, basically, making it fit, the interests that I had and really getting a lot out of it. So by the time senior year came around, I loved Case. I didn't, necessarily want to leave. And so what I stayed there for graduate school, And so it was just a place that I began to love, even though we had like, different racial conversations. I was even stopped by Case police, and asked if I went to the school. And I'm like, damn, like I've been here 6 years. I've been working for the school as a work study. I'm a GRM. A GRM is a graduate resident mentor, so it's basically a RA for the upperclassmen. I'm cool with the dean. All these different connections that I made, but yet and still, when that security guard or that police officer stopped me on that Segway, he didn't see me as a student. He didn't see me, making a dean's list. He didn't see me as a student at Case. He didn't see me as a worker at Case. He didn't see me as the president of the Black Student Association. He saw me as a black male, the average height, average weight, walking through campus.
Okay.
And
now,
go ahead.
Do you feel like that was because of racial profiling, or do you feel like he was actually doing his job?
Racial profiling. Usually we get like security alerts on our Case email if they were like looking for someone or, if a crime happened on campus. And of course, all the crimes were like the typical stuff, black male, average, it was just like this broad range to where it could have been anybody. They would say, oh, they look like they're age 18 to 23. Oh, they seem like they weigh 175 to 200 pounds. Oh, average height. So it's just like it could have been anybody black on campus, right? But we didn't get a security alert that week. It was sort of like the last week of class. I was headed to an interview at ESOP. And so I had on khakis. I had on my Case. I didn't have on my Case hoodie. I had my Case umbrella and my Case planner. It was raining that day. I leave my dorm from off 115th, and I'm walking towards the garage. So I see the officer coming up, so I stop so he can go past, because it's sort of like that thing when you're driving and you see the police, even if you're not doing anything, you're like looking in your rearview mirror, you're checking your speed limit. Even if you're going to speed limit, you still looking at rearview mirror like, oh, I hope he don't come after me, hope he don't come after me. So it's one of those things to where it's like, okay, I definitely don't want to be in the way of the police. Like, go ahead, take your time. So I stopped to let him go past. He said, no, you go ahead. So I walked past, and then, he rolled past me, and then I just heard the segue, like, turn around. And so I'm just like, oh God, like, what now? And so he asked me, he said, hey, do you go here? And so I said, what? And I started laughing, because you hear about these stories, but you don't expect it to happen to you. And so I started laughing, and so he was just like, I said, do you go here? And he got like really, like he got loud and was stern. And so I was just like, look, and I said, yeah, I go here. And he was just like, he just looked, took a pause, and he said, oh, okay. And then just like turned around. There was no explanation. He didn't say, he really didn't ask to see my ID or anything. It was just like, he just saw me walking as a black male and didn't stop anybody. You know what I'm saying? It was 2 white girls behind me. He didn't stop them. It was, it was a white guy ahead of me coming out of the garage. If he saw him, I don't know. But, I was the one that got stopped. And there was no explanation for it. And so, I didn't take, I wasn't happy about that.
It was an uncomfortable feeling.
It was, because it's just like, what do you mean? Do I go here? Was it the way I dressed? Was it the way I was walking? Like, what was it that made you say, I'm going to stop him and ask him, do he go here?
Now you said you had 5 other roommates.
Sophomore year.
And they were all black, 1 Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
Was that on purpose, or did it just happen?
Yeah, so sophomore year, you're able to pick who you live with going forward. Freshman year, you just kind of pair it with whoever, based on like a survey that you do based on what time. They ask you a series of questions like, what's your interest? What time do you go to sleep? What type of music do you listen to? And then they just pair you up with somebody, I guess, similar to those different characteristics.
So you were paired up with these people?
I was paired up with my freshman roommate, but sophomore year, going into sophomore year, you're able to pick who you want to live with.
Okay.
And so they all picked each other to live with, and then I was sort of like the last one to sign on, because, I really didn't know who I wanted to stay with. But then I said, okay, my roommate that I'm staying with now, he's about to join a fraternity, so I can't stay with him sophomore year. And then it's like, who else am I gonna stay with? So I stayed with them because it's like I knew them, like just from knowing them, seeing them around. And so I just figured that was my best bet, as opposed to staying with somebody I didn't absolutely know.
Now, with the other roommates that you had, did you ever hear them talk about experiences they had with security on campus, stuff like that?
Not really. Trying to think. Nothing that comes to mind as far as them being stopped by the police. Maybe just like different things, like if the car slows up, the police cars slow up and, ask them, sort of like mine, if they ask them if they go. But nobody has ever been like, questioned or interrogated like while they were like walking, things like that.
So you don't get much harassment out there?
Not from my experience. People have been questioned and asked to show their ID and things like that, but, for whatever reason.
We were just talking about race and racism. Let's speak a little bit on inequality and how inequality has impacted you personally, and how you feel it has impacted the city of East Cleveland.
It definitely has impacted me, because, like growing up poor, like everyone knows that you're poor because you kind of stay in the same area and you're faced with this, similar circumstances. So, if you stay, like my home wasn't like, well, it wasn't like a typical single parent home or single mother home in a sense that my dad was completely out of the picture. It was times where he didn't live at the house, and it was times that he was there. He may not have been there like mentally, but he was there physically. So it was different, scenarios like that. But all in all, my mom paid the bills, like she had to, somehow we survived on her salary of less than $35,000. Like my brother, my sister, me, paying rent, having food on the table, to the best of her ability, like we're able to survive. So when you kind of grow up poor and you kind of grow up in a sense of, oh, I don't have it now, or how much does that cost? It sticks in your mind, like even to this day. And it's kind of hard to shake because, you just still feel like you poor. And I remember my pastor talking about that whole poor mentality to where, you might get an income tax check, right? And so a lot of people look forward to that. And so you might splurge on material stuff, but then it's like you're not thinking about the future or saving money for us to go to college if you had kids. Like, like when I went to college, like my mom didn't hand me, money or say, it was me making it on my own. And so when you kind of grow up with that poor mentality, it sticks with you because no matter how much money you have, you're just thinking you're still poor. So it's like if you get like a lump sum, like an income tax check refund, you're going to spend it instantly just so stuff go back to normal, because having all this money is not normal at one time. So you like, oh man, let me get this, let me get that, let me get that. And then what happens when you spend it all? You back to living check to check, and now you're still struggling. And even though you hate the struggle, it's normal for you. And so it's something that you expect, and it's something you kind of put yourself in a position to keep struggling. And so that really stuck to me, because even going to Case, because a lot of my friends, they didn't necessarily grow up poor. They went to private schools. They had their grandparents giving them money to pay for their tuition. Tuition for me, I had that partial academic scholarship, which I thought, like when I first started at Case, like looking at the financial aid, I thought it was a full ride. Once that broke down, I saw what grants I had and what loans, Perkins, unsubsidized, subsidized. So I had to learn about all these different loans and really think like, oh, dang, this is not a full ride like I thought. This is just, an academic scholarship of $20,000, a couple grants here and there, and then I got, a $15,000 loan to take care of, Okay. And so being able to realize that other people are coming from these fortunate situations to where their whole tuition for the year is paid for. They don't have to take out loans. So they're not at the computer worrying about Sally Mae and what Sally Mae is going to do to them after they graduate. And so it was hard in that sense of economic equality. So being able to say, oh, no, I can't go out to eat this weekend, or I'm just barely trying to pay my cell phone bill. And then your roommate come home with shopping bags, and you're just looking like, dang, like, and you're just wishing that you can kind of get out of that lifestyle, get out of that struggle. And so, that in a sense, I saw inequality on an economic level going to Case. Because, Case costs money, and the people that go there, some have money. So.
How about the city of East Cleveland? When you was coming up, did you see many black businesses in East Cleveland?
The black business I saw was the corner store. It was AJ's, and it's on No, so I was able to walk down the street and go there. That was the only business that I remember that was black, and and people try. I don't know if they were like African Americans from the United States or if they were foreigners, but they had the same color skin that me and you have. So I just consider them black, and that's how I felt growing up, whether it was offensive or not. That's just what I saw.
They had a foreign.
They had accents, yeah. So I don't know, what it was. I never took the time to say, where are you from? I just knew that they owned a store in my neighborhood, and we went there to get candy, pop, and juice and stuff. So that was the only business. Everything else, dollar stores, gas stations were owned by Arabs. I know growing up we called them Arabs, but you know when I went to college, it was sort of like, okay, they're not Arabs because that's offensive. The cleaners that's right there on those, Chinese. The dollar stores, Chinese, and it was just like you see this type of inequality in the sense of here it is, this black neighborhood, and nothing in the neighborhood is black owned.
Okay.
You might have a fast food restaurant that's managed by a black manager, but they don't necessarily own that McDonald's or they don't own that Rally's. You know what I'm saying?
How did that affect you?
I really didn't see no effect like growing up. It was just something that I noticed, but it did affect me because it made me feel like the only thing that we're good for is buying stuff. Only thing that we can do is be consumers and be taken advantage of. So they'll have these businesses, and then we go there, shop there, get the hookup, whatever you want to call it, low, get something for the low. But they're basically saying, okay, we know what you like, this is what you like, and this is what we're going to sell. And we buy into that mentally, socially, culturally, and then with our money, our spending power. You know, like blacks we have a lot of spending power, not only in our neighborhoods, but in this country as a whole. Like we shape what products are being sold, like where we're at. And so to not see a black owned business, it just made me feel like only thing we're good for is just going to the store, being followed, walked around, harassed in the sense of what can I help you with, or having a sign posted on the door, only 2 people at a time, or leave your book bags here at the door, or even with all of that, you still go down the aisle and you're looking for something. Can I help you look for something? Or what are you looking for? So I'll say, like, you know, if you go to the dollar store to get a brush or something, you're looking for a brush, and they're like, okay, we have this brush right here and this one. Which one do you want? And it's just like, damn, like I can't even pick my own brush. It's like you have to watch me in a sense, and some people say like, oh, that's good customer service. I'm like, you stupid, because it's not. They're watching you to make sure you don't steal something or mess something up or some, you know what I'm saying? And so one thing I did and this was recently, went to the plaza on Superior and Euclid. Went to go get a brush. And so the lady was asking me, what kind of brush did I want? And I said, like a wave brush. I don't want a brush that's too soft, too hard. And so she was like, oh, you got this brush. We got this brush. We got this one. And I'm just like, I look for them myself. And she was just like, oh, well, we got these down here. So she's basically trying to hand me these brushes. And so I take the brush, and then she's like, well, she showed me the brush. I said, okay, I want that one. So she takes that one. She's headed to the register. So not only can I carry my own product that I'm about to purchase, but you want to carry it to the register for me as if, I can't carry it myself. So then I stayed because I'm like, okay, I want to get some moisturizer too. So I'm just looking for stuff. And so I'm like, she wanted to follow me so much. So I just start, like reaching for stuff and then just kind of like knocking stuff over, because I'm like, you really want to do something? I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you something to do, because it's just like, don't follow me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a criminal. I'm just here to get something that I feel that you have that I might need.
So why do you think she act like that, or anybody that does that?
It can be from previous experience, being robbed before or having somebody steal your product before, but that doesn't mean that everybody that comes in your store is going to do that. You got a lot of cameras in this place anyway. I could look up and see all the cameras on me. So I don't, having the cameras is one thing, but to have the person at the register looking down the aisle at me, and then you walking around acting like you fixing up stuff that's already perfect, and looking at me and just saying like, oh, can I help you with something? I'm like, clearly I know you're there. And so if I don't see something that I don't like, I'm going to ask you, because that's what you're there for, And so it just makes me mad to just to go to those type of places, but sometimes it's like you're forced to kind of go to those places because those are the only places you have in your neighborhood, and it's convenient, you know. I don't want to drive up to Target just to get a brush, you know.
Well, in your time and that you spent in East Cleveland coming up, what do you think about the different businesses that's in the city now and the different businesses that was in the city 10, 15 years ago?
So a lot of the businesses, and like I really didn't see, you know, you really don't see like this business culture there. You just have like all these dollar stores, liquor stores, and fast food. That's it. I don't necessarily consider those businesses because it's really just like consumer based, and to have that amount of those stores in our community is just based saying this is all you good for. Like we can't even have a real grocery store. Like what is Cooney's? What is it called now? East Cleveland Family Foods or Save More, whatever it's called. Like those stores are horrible. Like they got old stuff on the shelf. The shelves are dusty. So it's just like that. So if you don't take pride in this store, you want me to shop here and buy old stuff, but they don't see a problem with it and nobody sees a problem with it, so they're still open. And some people are forced to go there. If they don't have a car, if they don't have transportation to even get to Save a Lot up in Cleveland Heights or Dave's at Severance, they're forced to go to those type of places that's selling them type of stuff. And then you go in the store, they start talking in these different languages. So then you're like, are they talking about me? Like, you know, what's going on? And so it just kind of puts you real at ease. And so I remember, you know, as far as how the different businesses in East Cleveland has changed, I remember when I first moved there, we had a Burger King on Euclid. That's gone. The whole building is torn down. It's just a puddle of rocks and puddle of water when it rains, and that's across from the plaza. The plaza has always been there. It's pretty much the same stores, a dollar store. You got like a City Blue and TNT Fashions and a couple restaurants, H&R Block, check cash in place, because, you know, always got to have a check cash in place, right? Speaking of liquor, so Pizza Hut used to be there. Pizza Hut closed, and so now it's called Nemo's Liquor Store. You turn a Pizza Hut into a liquor store. Like, who does that? And so you have like all these different liquor stores, and then you have all the fast food restaurants. So you have, you know, Popeyes, Taco Bell, McDonald's, Wendy's, Subway, Riley's, all within 3 square miles. White Castle. Like you have all these fast food restaurants, no sit-down restaurant, no type of recreation for anything or entertainment. You know, I heard East Cleveland had like a skating rink, a bowling alley, a movie theater, all back when. And so in my mind, I'm like, why can't we have this now? You know, they always talk, you know, we always have to go out to enjoy something.
Well, because of that, do you think that's a testament to the citizens in East Cleveland or the elected officials, or both?
Definitely both. You know, we can shoot blame on the elected officials all day. Point blank is, we put them in office. Whether you voted or not, if you didn't vote, you was just like, it is what it is. So you had your part in letting them get to office because you didn't vote. And the people who voted for these people, you know, whether they just didn't know the facts or they feel like they was the best choice, I mean, it's just what they feel. And I feel like we definitely got to hold elected officials accountable because they haven't been held accountable. You know, nobody has really went to their office and said, you know, this is what I want. This is what our city needs. Listen to us. Like I went to a city council meeting before, and, you know, they have the portion where they ask for comments. State your name, state your residence so they can verify you East Cleveland resident. And then they ask you to say your question or your comment. My thing is, okay, you get up there and say your question or comment. They record it. So does somebody from city council call you with an answer later the week? Do they respond to it the next city council meeting? like I haven't had that follow up. Even when I asked questions before, I just ask the question, and then I have a seat, and the next person gets up. When is that question or that comment ever addressed? But this is how we run our city. This is how we do things. I mean, you got mayor and city council who cannot get along, And in my opinion, this year or with this administration, I have seen the most progress in East Cleveland ever since I've been an East Cleveland resident.
Okay.
The buildings I used to walk past at Superior School when I was going to Superior have been abandoned ever since I moved to the city. How do you have an abandoned building that's been there for 18 years? One building just got torn down. Not saying that, is Mayor Norton's fault for not getting this building torn down before. I salute him for even getting this building torn down now, because what about the other mayors? What about people that was on city council before or city council during that time? I know we have this relationship now with the Cuyahoga County Land Bank, which is great because then now we're able to address the abandoned housing issue. It's not going to happen overnight. I understand that because our housing infrastructure represents 40,000 people. We have 17,000 people. So it's going to take a while to where you're actually able to see like no more abandoned houses or anything like that. But I did notice that the building I used to walk past every day, it's 3 of them. It's still 2 more that I'm waiting to get knocked down. So, and I told Mayor Norton, I'm like, okay, you tore this one down across the street. Let's get these other 2, because Superior School is right there. And if I walked past it as a young child 18 years ago and kids are still walking past it today, like, you just don't want that. Like, why? So I think I answered your question.
Yes, you did. But you spoke on voting and getting people elected into office. We recently had a mayoral election where the mayor was put back into office
Right.
with 3 times the amount of vote as the nearest competitor. But the sad thing is it was still a very small portion of East Clevelanders that voted.
Right.
What do you think about that, and how do you think we can improve that?
I'm glad you brought this up because I do youth programs and I have like 6 students from Shaw High School, so they, are familiar with the East Cleveland School District. And so while I definitely advocated for them to get their parents to vote and told them to empower them because you're doing this youth program about youth voice and everything. And so we looked at the results the next day from the Board of Elections. 3 people were running for mayor, right? One, Robinson got I think 135 votes. Joy Jordan got 500 something, and then the mayor had like 1,500 votes. A landslide, right? In no sense. That's great if you have 3,000 residents, 3,000 voting members. We have 17,000 members according to the census. A lot of people want to say, oh, it's really 20,000. Whatever, however you want to fudge the number, it's still lower than, what it was. It's still 17,000 officially. Out of 17,000 people, and, that could probably go down to about 10,000 adults, I guess, however you might want to break it down. You only have 2,000 of those 10,000 voting adults to vote. Like, that's terrible, And it's one thing to, like me, I sent out text messages to people like, make sure y'all go vote, make sure y'all go vote and things like that. My own brother didn't vote, you know what I'm saying? And not trying to just put him on blast, but it was just like, people are at different places in their life as far as like mindsets. He took his girlfriend to go vote, but he sat in the car while she went to go vote and he didn't go vote. Like, but what sense does that make? But a lot of people feel that way. They feel like they can't trust anybody, or they feel like, oh, it doesn't matter. The only person I want to vote for is President Obama. President Obama doesn't live in East Cleveland. He can't really, make the decision that affects us immediately at the local government level. but people don't really understand that. And it's hard to really get people to trust again in the system that East Cleveland has. It's so outdated, like the rules for like city council and everything is so old. All the rules are still set in stone as if we had a city manager government. We have mayor and city council, but the rules and the policies don't reflect that. And so when you have 40 years of disinvestment, corrupt leadership, and just lies and just foolery, and people just taking office just for egos, you really don't get anything done. And the residents see that, and so they lose faith in what people can accomplish. And so they either say, oh, I'm not going to vote because they don't do nothing anyway, or I'm not going to vote because my voice doesn't count, or some people don't even know about the election. So you have to deal with those three different mixes of people. And that's something we saw with this election. So while the mayor won, but it was at a low turnout,
Okay, can you, do you have a memory or instance where the community fought for something that they thought was important?
Huron Hospital, with Noah, that whole thing. And it's funny because I remember when they were beginning to build the complex that's right there on Belmore, the Stephanie Tubbs Jones Health Center. Before it was just called the Health Center or whatever it was going to be called. Stephanie Tubbs Jones' name wasn't on there. I think that was a great move by Cleveland Clinic to, dedicate that building to her because she did fight to keep Huron open, and, she's Black, and so, it's something to help ease the Black community as they lose their hospital. So that's great. But a lot of people felt like the hospital, to be a level, with the level 2 trauma center in the city, it didn't just service the city of East Cleveland like people thought. It serviced the east side of Cleveland, Cleveland Heights, and things of that sort. So when you take that away, now people are forced to travel to Metro or to Mayfield. And so it puts people's lives at risk because that increase in travel time is greater. And, I would love to see, someone do a study about deaths caused based on this longer commute to this hospital. But I remember, Noah being at the forefront to really kind of negotiate between the mayor, city council, and officials at Cleveland Clinic to talk about ways that they could, keep the hospital open and still service the community, whatever that deal was about, Cleveland Clinic. I know Cleveland Clinic took care of demolishing the building and cleaning up the land and then being able to pay, the taxes they would pay for 5 years to the city, which is great because the city needs any type of revenue that it could get, not just any, not desperately, but, we need that solid tax base to be there. And so that was one thing. I remember going to the protests, going to the press conferences, marching in front of Cleveland Clinic, marching in front of Huron, just basically with signs saying, save the hospital, save our trauma. I remember doing a project at school around that. And so that was one time where I felt like people in the community came out. It wasn't the whole community, but that was something that was that was on the news, and we were organizing to get people to come. And it was around the fall and winter time. So, cause I remember it was like cold, and I remember it was on a Friday night. And I'm saying, on a Friday night, here I am standing in front of this hospital trying to save it. You know what I could be doing on a Friday night? And so it was sort of like this shift in my mind as I was, getting more involved in community work and things of that sort. So that's one memory I could feel like the community was really animate about trying to keep the hospital.
And you say Noah spearheaded that movement.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say Noah, You're speaking of Northeast Ohio Alliance for Hope,
Correct.
and who are they, and how do you feel about that organization?
It's headed by Travell Harp. I know they do community work as far as candidates forums and, protests and really organizing around issues. That's what I know about them. I did work with them previously. So yeah, I think it's a great group for East Cleveland to really kind of get a sense of that organization and being able to create action. I know recently they've been doing like the candidates forums and things of that sort. So, that's about it.
How have surrounding institutions and cities impacted the city of East Cleveland?
I don't think they really have. While they might collaborate, with police or things like that, like Cleveland Heights or in Cleveland and East Cleveland, they might collaborate in that sense. But you kind of get the sense that nobody wants a part of that area. It's sort of like, so I saw this picture on Instagram, and it was a picture of, the movie The Lion King. So remember when Mufasa and Simba are sitting on Pride Rock and the sun is touching everything that's, Pride Rock. And then Simba asks, what's that shadowy dark place over there? And Mufasa tells him, promise me you won't never go over there, blah, 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 blah. On the Instagram picture, it was basically saying, you see that shadowy dark place, that's East Cleveland. Don't ever go in there. Don't ever go there. So I saw, and it was somebody from East Cleveland. And so, it made me smile. But then when I was able to see it on other people's pages, people that don't have affiliation with East Cleveland, they just hear these perceptions. It made me mad because it's just like, this is their perception of East Cleveland. And we accept it as residents and we put it out there for other people to accept it. And so it's really frustrating because they eat it up and they throw it back out like, boom, this is East Cleveland, y'all better stay away. But then they'll come and smile in my face knowing I'm from East Cleveland. So it's sort of like this contradiction. So it's like, okay, should I really find that funny amongst ourselves? It's sort of like blacks, the black culture. We'll talk about ourselves or we'll call ourselves,
The N-word.
the N-word, right. And nobody wants to say the N-word because, it's just, you don't want to say the N-word. But we'll call ourselves that, but then let a white person call us that. You were just like, oh, did you just call me a nigga? You know what I'm saying? And it's just crazy because we'll say it amongst ourselves, but let somebody else outside our culture say it.
How do you feel about that? I know when I was coming up, it was offensive to me then, it's offensive to me now. But my sons used to use it a lot towards their friends. I didn't approve. But what did you think of it?
So I was just like, your sons growing up, right? I used the word nigga interchangeably thinking it was something cool. It's like saying, yo, you know what I'm saying? Your homie, your boy. It could be your best friend, anything like that. And so growing up, I heard the word a lot. And it wasn't just, through music, but I heard it like amongst my friends. And it wasn't like this derogatory term. It was like this term of affiliation or, of affectionate. It wasn't this bad term in my mind, in our minds, right? Growing up, when I kept hearing the word, because I noticed how on TV, if somebody said nigga, they would block it out. But they could say the word bitch, damn, ass, and things like that, and not really, and those terms weren't blocked out. And so I'm saying, and everybody kept talking about the N-word, which one is more offensive, calling, it was this question, it was on CNN, talking about which word is more offensive, calling a white person a cracker or calling a black person the N-word. That's how the question was phrased. And so I said, of course, the most offensive one is the one you won't say. You won't dare say it on air or you won't even spell it out. And so learning the meaning behind it and like, slavery and the slave master with, with the whole nigger with the ER, and then, people just saying like, oh, we dropped the ER, added A, it's cool. I really didn't find it cool after a while to really be referred to as that. And, people will refer to me as that word, even to this day, like we saying like, what's up? Or like, just, I don't know, in a phrase, but they really don't say it to me a lot. They'll say it in regards to other people, but they really won't say it to me. And I never really said like, I remember one of my friends, I was just talking about how I really don't use that word and how it's just, I don't know, I just feel a certain type of way about that word. And so they really don't use it. I remember my friend was talking about how much I accomplished and things like that, just really trying to just like, like build me up and uplift me like one day. Cause I was just like, I really, different things that I accomplished, I really, didn't pay them much to mind or, pay too much mind to it. And so he was just like, nigga, like you the man, like, do you know what you're doing? And he was just like, I don't mean to call you nigga, like I apologize, but like you the man, like you doing this and that. And that was something he was able to click in his own mind and do. I don't know if that was because it was just me or, if he felt like saying that word in that sense wasn't matching up. But that was something that I noticed that he did, in addressing me. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, there's one other thing. The dress code is out there right now, where they wear, a lot of younger guys wear their pants down below their
I knew this was next.
What do you feel about that?
I mean, people kind of go, it's one thing to kind of go through a phase, but to make it a lifestyle to where this is just what you do. Like high school, when I saw it, I mean, for myself, I went through that phase real brief, right? So it was just like, I saw people, with the baggy pants and you would like wear shorts up under your pants. And so it was just like, it was just the look. And so I was really trying to like fit in and be like everybody else. And so, but then I was just like, my grandma, I know you're not sagging. So it was just like, people held me to a standard that I didn't even know they held me to, And so it was hard for me to be the person that people expected me to be, but yet and still conform to everything that everybody else was doing. And so, I mean, it wasn't really my style, but it was like I was trying to do it, like the whole wearing a do-rag in public type of thing. I never did the tall tees. That was just too drastic for me. Like, I don't need a T-shirt to my knees, But it's funny now because there's different trends in fashion. People still sag, but they might sag like they're skinny jeans, which is the stupidest thing I've seen. Like, you got these tight pants on, but then you're going to sag them. Like, just buy something that fit, So that's something I don't, I don't like to see. If somebody came to me and they were sagging, I'm not going to treat them any way differently. Like, I'm going to always respect somebody, because that's just how I am. I don't want to just necessarily prejudge someone. Right. But, I mean, it's just something I don't do. So, yeah.
Well, for instance, the other day I was in a store, and I came up to the cashier, and the cashier turned around with the sagging pants way down.
What store were you in?
Save-A-Lot, over on Shaw and St. Clair.
Mm-hmm. So it goes down to just a level of respect for yourself and a level of respect for for that workplace. Like where's the manager? If that's how if that's the dress code for that place, then that's the dress code for that place. A lot of people are from that traditional sense where it's all about presentation and things of that sort. And so I don't necessarily always do things in traditional sense. Like, for different job interviews, I had my earrings in, right? And it was me taking that risk because people said, oh, you might not want to go there with your earrings in, or you might not want to go in with this and that. But I made it this far. Maybe I'm able to do that because of, like the experience I have and the credentials I have. Everybody may not be able to do that. But it was just a risk that I took each time I went to do an interview. And, they were able to look past that, And so it's just different things like that, that is kind of, you don't expect to see that at a grocery store or, things of that sort. I've been around people where people have told people to pull up their pants. They either do it, with no problem because they say like, oh, I respect, you as an elder, or some people they done it or they haven't done it and just said, like, who you talking to type of thing. So it can go either way, but,
Let's go back to the surrounding institutions and the surrounding cities around East Cleveland. I noticed University Circle, Inc. seems to be moving in this direction of the city of East Cleveland. What do you feel about that?
I don't necessarily see them moving this way per se, because they could still find space within University Circle, and I know that's the object or the aim that this current the Northern administration is kind of taking. They're saying, University Circle is running out of space. Let's clear up some land closer to them because they're gonna have to come our way, soon. How soon is that? Is that soon 6 months from now, a year from now? I don't know. I know they had the project where they collaborate with East Cleveland and they built that townhome development, the Circle East project. So that's one step. I feel and I feel it's successful. They're at capacity, I think, still right now. And that's a great first step because it shows faith in that whole generational thing, like, oh, don't go under the bridge. But people now, like some students, they don't have that mentality to say, oh, I'm not gonna go on the bridge. Like, they're adventurous. I remember doing orientation, they said, don't go to East Cleveland, it's unsafe, and things of that sort. I'm from East Cleveland, so it was one of those, it's one of those interactions where you just make people look stupid as they're trying to explain this to this whole group of new students taking a tour of campus, right? And then, they say, oh, I didn't mean anything about it, and they just stutter over their words. But, those moments stick with me because it was something I was able to say in defense of myself, in defense of my city. But Universal Inc. coming this way, there's a lot of development, billions of dollars of investment in that area. Right. East Cleveland will need that investment to spill over in order to survive and maintain. But at what cost? At what cost are they really willing to expand this way? What type of development is going to sustain East Cleveland's tax base? Are we going to have a medical lab in East Cleveland? Are we going to have a warehouse? Like what's going to go in that big space as you enter East Cleveland from University Circle? Those are like big questions. And what's going to happen in that area where there are houses and people are staying on those streets? And, not saying that gentrification is going to happen or, if it does happen, is good or bad. You do need to mix it up. You do need to shake the city up, though. We've been doing the same thing for years. And so it's time to get that, to draw that investment beyond Circle East. We need more than that to really make that expansion eastward.
Because you can go from Lakeview to Noble, and there's plenty space there for development.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got Hayden Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
How was those two areas when you was coming up? Was it active?
Hayden was always like just drab. You know, it was only time I was really on Hayden was for being in or kind of walking to my cousin's house because they stayed off East 142nd and Elm. So we would walk, you know, Hayden way, but Hayden was always sort of like this back street. It wasn't highlighted in any sense. It was just a way to get to the freeway, a way to get, you know, wherever you might have to go if you didn't want to take Euclid. But it wasn't sort of like a place you look forward to going. It wasn't like a destination. It wasn't like, you know, that's sort of like the best way I can explain it. It wasn't prominent, you know.
It's kind of funny you say that, you know, that's in your lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when it was vibrant, you know.
I seen like an old boarded up grocery store on Hayden, and I guess Silverman's been there for like years. But, and you know, the churches and things of that sort, but.
They had a movie theater.
Wow, see, those are things, you know, I missed, you know.
Right. Well, we're bordering Cleveland, we're bordering Cleveland Heights, Euclid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you think there has been any kind of impact from these other cities as far as East Cleveland is concerned?
Lack of impact, or lack of investment. Like I said earlier, I feel like those areas don't really want to touch East Cleveland. You know, in that sense, is, you know, let East Cleveland be its own. If it just runs out of being a city, and then, you know, you always hear a rumor about annexation of East Cleveland. Cleveland Heights gonna get the upper half with the Forest Hill, you know, the historic district, and Cleveland would absorb the rest. Some people say, oh yes, that need to happen. The city needs more resources, blah, 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 blah. And then some people, they're like, oh, I don't want that to happen because they have that pride of being an East Cleveland resident, which is understandable. I don't really know much about the annexation, like what will really happen, you know? We're pretty much the same anyway. But those bordering cities, I don't see any type of collaboration. It may be some behind doors, or like I said, you know, with police or things of that sort, or, you know, postal service now, because the post office closed in East Cleveland. So the nearest post office is up at Severance. But things of that sort. But as far as regional and making our cities better together, no, I don't see it.
Okay. What is your vision for the future of East Cleveland? Tell me about the major issues that need addressing in order to better the neighborhood and the community.
So definitely safety. Like it's a huge perception of East Cleveland as being unsafe. And so being able to have the funds to have that stable police department to where it's like, okay, you're not going to hire 20 police officers only to be forced to lay them off 12 months later or 8 months later, however soon it may be. Being able to have a stable police force to where they understand the area, because my understanding is that we get a lot of police who are fresh out of the academy, never stepped foot in East Cleveland before until they had that job posting. And so they need to have that training around diversity and racial, some type of training to where they understand the area and they're not just coming in blind eye, you know? So safety is one. I envision of East Cleveland that's safe, East Cleveland that's vibrant. You know, so I want to see a bowling alley. I want to see a grocery store. I want to see a increased tax base. I want to see more homeowners. I want to see people outside barbecuing and having fun, having a good time. I want to be able to see our school district and our city collaborate. How do the city and East Cleveland School District have no relation? They're right here. I run this. There's no middle ground. I want to see more collaboration in that sense. We're too small to not work together. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Everybody wants to reinvent the wheel and create these programs or say I'm going to do this, and it never comes to the light because it's stupid. It's not going to work. If we got past all the egos and, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the superintendent, I'm the mayor, I'm the city council, I'm head of this program, I run the library, I run this. If we were all able to just put all of that aside, and if residents were more involved in that process, I feel like we would get a better East Cleveland. I was trying to think about the motto of East Cleveland or what it is now, but just envision a better East Cleveland in that sense, to where you have more civic participation from the residents and not just the old people. And I don't mean that in any offensive way, but every time you go to a city council meeting or a board meeting, you see the same people. And they come to me like, oh yeah, it's good to see you. And I want to get past the image or past the fact that me being young or my friends coming to a meeting, we're not the highlight of the meeting because we're young. I want to get past that. I want that to be expected. Okay. So that's sort of the vision that I see, is that everyone being able to participate in this process, but it takes a lot. Like, it takes those egos going out the door. It takes getting people in these positions to where they really have East Cleveland at the heart. Right. Not just in the mind, or just saying, I want to do this because it's just something to do, or I want to do this because I want to blame this person, blame that, because that's all it is. Who wants to go to a meeting and everybody is pointing the fingers at each other? Nothing's going to get done. Nothing. And that's what we've been seeing over and over and over again. Nothing. I mean, you have like different physical progress throughout the city, as I mentioned earlier, different streets and things like that. Like, now you can actually see which lane you're in now because they, painted the streets and stuff. That's good. You don't have to cause an accident or anything. But seeing that, like, I want to get married, have kids, and raise them in East Cleveland. Right now, is that going to happen? I don't know. It depends on when I get married and have kids. I want East Cleveland to be home. Like, I'm very passionate about my city. I love it. I love the childhood I had, in the city physically, but who knows? And we've lost a lot of people who just like moved out and things of that sort. I don't necessarily want to leave the city, but if you're faced with that choice and that option, what sense would it make for me to still be here?
Well, East Cleveland is about 95% African American. Mm-hmm. What do you feel about more diversity into the city in the future of East Cleveland? Do you feel it should be more diverse?
Definitely. Shake it up. So everybody is so used to this just being a black community. Yeah. It can be a black community, but, we have to get out of that mindset of people trying to take over or they don't know type of thing, because, hell, we don't know either. You know what I'm saying? We all in this thing together. So to have a white couple move on my parents' street, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I wouldn't be opposed to 6 of them moving in. They can get those abandoned houses that's abandoned. So, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I'll be in support of that. How to make that happen? You have to address those issues, because families do not come to cities with bad school districts, bad government, bad city services, and a lack of respect amongst elected officials. They just don't come. So we can say we want it. I mean, we have some diversity as far as like in the Circle East townhomes and then Lake Park Tower and things of that sort. But those are isolated incidents. Those residents are not coming to the town hall meetings. Those residents are not coming to city council meetings. They're just living here because it's cheap. And those buildings are decent enough for them to venture into the city, in my opinion. And so we're going to need all that diversity of businesses, diversity of people, diversity of, raising that tax income. We're going to need it. We're going to need it, or we're going to be in the same place that we are.
I want to ask you another question about there's a separation in East Cleveland when you talk about the hill and the city part.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that difference?
So I've heard about that, and I think it's a generational thing. If you ask the young people, or people in my generation younger, they won't see that separation. They really don't see the whole idea of going under the bridge from, University of East Cleveland. I do notice up the hill, because up the hill, East Cleveland going across, there's parts that's up the hill. So you have up the hill, Taylor, Noble, Lee Road, Forest Hills, and Superior. But when people say up the hill, they speak of that one piece of up the hill. And that up the hill part is where those Rockefeller homes are at. That Lee Road and Forest Hill Boulevard, they speak to that because that's where primarily a lot of homeowners are, and that's where you will get your diversity. So you may have people that are white that live up there, and it's sort of like the nicer area. So if you go on the website of eastcleveland.org, if it's still up and running, you will see a picture of the Rockefeller homes. And that's cool because you want to highlight what's great about the city, but that's just what you see. And so it may create that type of thing. I don't know if people from up the hill feel, like they have to come to the city council meeting or come to the, I never went around and asked everybody where they live, but I doubt if you have a great representation from up the hill. And so, it is that divide because they're up there by the park. It's real suburban, it's very peaceful as opposed to what you might have down the hill,
Okay, what would you be prepared to do to participate in making East Cleveland a better place to live?
Oh, the dominant question, huh? Active participation.
Yeah.
What am I willing to do? I'm willing to support council, support the mayor, go to the meetings, host meetings, really, help with bridging the school district with the city. I'm down for, the whole movement and getting things together. What that looks like, I just don't know yet. It's one thing to go to a city council meeting and then just go home. But I'm willing to begin to hold our elected officials to higher standards. I'm willing to call them and go to their office and knock on the door and say, hey, I sent you a letter and you never respond. I called and you never respond to me, or your answer is insufficient. I'm willing to do that.
Well, did you have anything else to add?
No.
Okay. Well, Donté, I would like to thank you again for the opportunity to interview you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you would like to add before we close out this interview?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.